الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. قال الله عز وجل في القرآن المجيد والفرقان الحميد وسلام عليه يوم ولد ويوم يموت ويوم يبعث حيا. صدق الله العظيم. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا ومولانا محمد وبارك وسلم عليه. All praises for Allah Almighty, who created this universe, and in creating this universe, He created it in a succinct and perfect order. He created this universe in accordance to the law of physics, in accordance to the law of biology, in accordance to all of the holistic laws of science. And all praise is to Allah Almighty, who demonstrated the greatness of the Milad of Rasulullah ﷺ by bestowing upon us and upon this universe the great mercy of Rasulullah ﷺ. And all praises to Allah Almighty, whom bestowed upon us this noble messenger on this noble day. And on this noble day, such was the rank of that messenger that even all of the laws of science submitted to his will when he pointed his noble Mubarak finger at the moon and the stars, and he moved that Mubarak finger and the moon and the stars followed his Mubarak finger out of love and reverence for Rasulullah as a child. As Ahl Sunnah, we gather today and we remember this day. We commemorate this month. We elevate this month. We give shukr for this month. We do the dhikr of Allah Almighty and His Rasul on this month. And it is so shameful that even on this month, this blessed auspicious month, there are those individuals who would attempt to misguide your attention, who would attempt to remove your attention from this time in an effort to prevent you elevating the status of Rasulullah ﷺ. And they do this by misguiding our youth, by attributing to us the titles of Ahl al-Bid'ah, Ahl al-Shirk. They say we commit shirk on this month by remembering the birth of Rasulullah. They say that the remembrance of the birthday of Rasulullah is not from the Quran, it is not from the Sunnah, it is not from the way of the Ashab radiallahu anhum, that this is something alien, that this is a thing invented by our noble Mujaddid of Ahl Sunnah, the reviver and the protector of the subcontinent, Ala Hazrat Imam Ahmad Rida Khan rahimahullah. But I tell you, and I start with this premise today, Milad is not a species invented centuries ago by an individual in the subcontinent. No. Milad, first and foremost, is the Sunnah of Almighty Allah.
Subhanallah.
Whose Sunnah is it?
Almighty Allah.
Alhamdulillah. At least I know you're awake. At least I know you are with me. You'll have to forgive me. I'm getting over a recurring infection. So, and this is... And this is holding me back a little bit today. But don't worry, nothing can stop us praising and elevating the status of Rasulullah. Certainly not a chest infection. So, how many revelatory sources are there of this deen? We have the Quran, and we have the Sunnah, I will be doing this throughout to make sure you're awake. To make sure that your thoughts aren't lost to the delicious langar. I will be ensuring you're awake. So, is there any mention of the word or of the concept of Milad in the Quran? Well, I tell you this. How can a concept be bid'ah if the very word comes from the Quran? TK, you're following? You weren't expecting a white guy to say it that way. You're saying TK? I can say Acha as well. Now, the word Mawlid is a species of the Quran. It is a species of Al-Quran Al-Kareem. But before I elaborate upon that, how many types of salam are there in the Quran? There are 3 types of salam. How many? 3 types. The first type is a general salam. And you hear this at the end of your dua when the Imam Sahib makes dua. And Allah educates us. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين والسلام على المرسلين. Peace be upon all the mursaleen. This is general salam. Now listen, I'm going to have to keep you all awake. If I was to start reading you poetry, for example, if I started to read the famous Naat of Allah Hazrat, which he wrote in the love and reverence of Rasulullah, the Sunni audiences I lecture to, they all react the same when I read this, and I have no doubt that this audience will also react the same. Mustafa Jane Rahman Ilahu Salam. You see, but what is more deserving of your praise? A naat or the Quran? So when you hear the Quran, it is a sign of Ahl Sunnah that when we hear and listen to the Quran Al-Kareem, we say, Subhanallah. And when we say Subhanallah, that dhikr according to a hadith of Sahih, it releases a musk. And the malaika circle the earth looking for this musk. And when they find it, they pile one on top of the other. And they say, Oh Allah, they are remembering you. And Allah tells the angels, I remember them in greater gatherings. Forgive all of their sins. So when you hear the Quran, what is it we say? What is it we say? Listen, Allah educates us. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wassalamun ala al-mursaleen walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Peace be upon all the mursaleen. This is a general salam. So throughout the lives of all of the Anbiya, Allah remembers them and elevates them by sending salawat upon them. Then we have specific salam. Yani salam upon individual prophets. And all the prophets are recipients of this. There are many examples in the Quran. For example, وَسَلَامٌ عَلَى إِبْرَاهِيمَ وَسَلَامٌ عَلى إِلْيَاسِينَ وَسَلَامٌ عَلى مُوسَى وَهَارُونَ وَسَلَامٌ عَلَى الْمُرْسَلِينَ. So Allah remembers individual prophets through their life. Yes? You're following with me. So so far we have the first type, which is general. The second type, which is specific. Now, Allah remembers 3 days in the life of a prophet. We have 3 types of salam, and then we have 3 days in the life of a prophet that Allah Almighty remembers. What days are they? Because there are 365 days in a year. Allah could give dhikr to any of those days. But Allah educates us by giving the remembrance, by elevating 3 of those days. What days are they? وَسَلَامٌ عَلَيْهِ يَوْمَ عُلِدَ وَيَوْمَ يَمُوتُ وَيَوْمَ يُبْعَثُ حَيًّا. Subhanallah. Listen, peace be upon him. This ayah refers to Yahya alayhi salam. Peace be upon him when? وَسَلَامٌ عَلَيْهِ يَوْمَ عُلِدَ وَيَوْمَ يَمُوتُ وَيَوْمَ يُبْعَثُ حَيًّا. The day he was born, يَوْمَ عُلِدَ. The day he will die, وَيَوْمَ يَمُوتُ. And the day he will be resurrected alive, وَيَوْمَ يُبْعَثُ حَيًّا. These 3 days, Allah has elevated them. Did you not notice? Where does the word Mawlid come from? وَسَلَامٌ عَلَيْهِ يَوْمَ عُلِدَ. The word Mawlid comes from the Quran. How can the thing we practice year in and year out be innovation when the very basis of that word comes from the Quran? And Allah elevates these days by sending salawat upon the Anbiya. All of them. But is there an example of any prophet remembering their birthday? Because Allah does it. But then you know what these Wahhabis are like, isn't it? For some reason they are not happy with Allah doing it. So then they say, well, show us where a prophet has done it. So we prove to them where a prophet has done it. And the verse of the Quran comes from the same surah. وَسَلَامُ عَلَيَّ يَوْمَ عُلِدْتُ وَيَوْمَ أَمُوتُ وَيَوْمَ يُبْعَثُ حَيًّا. This verse is Isa alayhi salam. Who is it? Isa alayhi salatu wassalam. وَسَلَامُ عَلَيَّ. Peace be upon me. When? يَوْمَ عُلِدْتُ. The day I was born. He sends salawat upon himself on his birthday. Why would he choose his birthday if the day of birth has no significance? If the day of birth is just another day in the calendar, why would Isa alayhi salatu wassalam send salam upon himself? Subhanallah. You're following? Now for Sunnis, we say, alright, TikTok, that's it, bus, we're finished now. We'll chill and we'll just do Milad. But we proved Allah does it, but they're not happy with Allah doing it. We proved a prophet does it, but they're not happy with the prophet doing it. Then they say, well, where's your dalal that the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam did it? Is there any dalil that Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam remembered his birthday? Huh? Is there any basis for the Prophet ﷺ remembering his birthday? I don't know if we've got any Salafis in the audience, but I hope we do. Because you should listen very carefully to this dalil. I haven't travelled all the way from the north to give you dalil just so it goes in one ear and out the other. Listen carefully. They say we only follow 2 books of hadith. I mean, they don't actually realistically. They follow all of them. But whenever, for some reason, whenever it comes to giving dala'il, they'll only take 2 books of hadith. Bukhari and Muslim. Fine, these are very authentic books. So I'm going to give you 3 books today. Bukhari, Muslim, and the Mustadrak of Imam Hakim. Why the Mustadrak? Because the Mustadrak is a book where a muhaddith has taken a collection of hadith. He has went through that hadith. He's removed anything which is not sahih. You're following? So a Mustadrak is sahih. And Imam Hakim was a very famous muhaddith, and his Mustadrak is a very famous book of hadith. So, with that in mind, let's turn first to Sahih Muslim. We'll go back to Bukhari in a moment. But Sahih Muslim. You all know this hadith. You've all heard it year in and year out. But whenever I lecture, I want to give a new twist to it. I don't want to just give you the same old, same old. Because then what's the point? You may as well just stick it in on YouTube, isn't it? And become a YouTube scholar. So, as many of us are these days. So, or a Facebook, or Twitter. But the point is there anything in Sahih Muslim? Yes, the Prophet ﷺ, a Sahabi approached him. In this day and age, my students, they come to me and they say, right, is this sunnati, is this wajib, sunnati muwakkida, ghair muwakkida, alhamdulillah, sunnati muwakkida, ghair muwakkida? Because when they're asking me, if they say, what is the ruling of this? And I say it's wajib, they'll do it. If they ask me and they say, is it sunnati muwakkida? And I say yes, they'll do it. If I say it's sunnati ghair muwakkida, they'll think, wicked, I can stop doing it. But in the time of the ashab, they used to ask questions in order to perform more ibadah. You're following? They used to want to do more. Unlike now where we try to do less. Now, a Sahabi comes to the Prophet ﷺ. Oh, actually there's one more foundation I need to lay for you. We all agree that the Sahaba wanted to do as much as possible, yes? Yes? Yes. So you can't dispute with me on that after this. If any of you disagree with me on Milad, see me at the end. But if we all agree on this, we have to agree on principles. The Sahaba, best of generations, they all tried to do as much as they possibly could. We're all agreed on that. Yes. Now, another thing we have to agree on. The Sahaba used to compete with each other in goodness. Yes. Yeah? Yes. They did. They all used to be in competition. They tried to outdo one another in goodness. But it didn't produce enmity between them. But they were always trying to outdo one another. Because this is what we should do in the deen. We try to outdo one another in goodness. This is the only thing that separates us. Taqwa. Now, a Sahabi comes to the Prophet ﷺ and says, Ya Rasulullah, when should I fast? And the Prophet ﷺ says, fast Mondays. And he goes, why Ya Rasulullah? Now, I'm going to try, as I said, I'm going to try and give you a different insight to this hadith. Because there are so-called dodgy ulama who try to refute this dala'il. So I'm going to explain it in such a way that it's not refutable. Okay? And then that way our youth have it clear in their minds. When you say to someone, why? That answer they give you is your intention. Do you understand? So if I say to my mum, what can I do for you? She goes, wash the dishes. Why? Because it will make me happy. Okay, mum, I'll do it. So my intention for washing the dishes is to make my mum happy. So when the Sahaba, this Sahabi, he said, Ya Rasulullah, when should I fast? Fast Mondays. The hukum is there, it's established. Fast Mondays. Then he said, why, Ya Rasulullah? So what are we now establishing? The intention. The reason he fasts is now going to be established. What does the Prophet say? Because it was the day I was born. Yes? Now, it gets better. It gets better. So that proof is now irrefutable. You can't refute that proof because the intention of that Sahaba is to fast because it's the birthday of Rasulullah. That is it. Yes, there are other hadiths. Fast Thursdays, fast Mondays and Thursdays. There are other evidences. But this evidence which we are quoting establishes the intention, the valid intention of fasting Mondays because it was the day the Prophet ﷺ was born. But then the Sahaba, he will start fasting. So that's the second principle we've looked at. But what was the first principle we agreed on? The second, is that they all compete with each other, yes? So he starts fasting on Mondays. And all these other Sahabis are looking at him fasting on Mondays. And they're thinking to themselves, what does he know that we don't know? As in, why is he fasting? Because we've all just agreed that they were in competition with each other for goodness. So if we're all in agreement, if you and I were in competition for each other for goodness, and you saw me reading a tasbih while you're not reading a tasbih, you're going to say, what are you reading? Why are you reading it? I'm reading this because he gives us barakah. Right, I'm going to start reading it. Because we're in competition for goodness. Yes? So all the other Sahabis are seeing him fasting on Mondays. They're eating, they're drinking, but he's fasting. They go, oh so-and-so, why are you fasting on Mondays? What was his established intention? From the hadith of Sahih Muslim, what was his established intention? It was because it was the day the Prophet ﷺ. So when he's asked, why are you fasting on this day? What's he going to say? It's because it was the day the Prophet ﷺ was born. How dare they say that the Ashab didn't celebrate the Milad? How dare they? So there's the hadith of Sahih Muslim explained fully. Now, the hadith of Sahih Bukhari, it alludes to the barakah of Milad al-Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam. We are all of agreement, again let's establish a principle. We're all in agreement that if someone dies and Allah takes their soul whilst they're in a state of kufriyat, whilst they're a kafir, I mean Allah may change their heart at the last moment, but we don't know that. But as far as we're concerned, as far as the zahir is concerned, if that person passes away as a kafir and Allah takes him as a kafir, then how do his yes or no answer? Do his deeds give him any goodness in the akhirah? Yes or no? No. Yes or no? No. No. It's not a trick question. They don't. Every deed, the prayers, the fasting, the charity, the pilgrim, everything they've ever done is wasted. It's finished. We're all in agreement.
Yes.
Now, there is a certain kafir who was a top-notch kafir. And he was a certified, you know, you have certified accountants. This guy is a certified kafir. He's a real top-notch kafir. Abu Lahab. He ain't just some normal geezer. He is the worst of the worst. I mean, I suspect Jahannam threw a party when he came there. That is how disgustingly low his maqam is. But even he receives barakah in the akhirah. Yes? This individual who Allah says about him, Tabbat yada abi lahabin wattab, that his hands, his arms are cursed. He is a cursed individual. By the Quran, the qat'i of the Quran, he is cursed. But even he receives barakah in the akhirah. Why? He came into the dream of Hazrat Ibn Abbas. Huh? This is Sahih Bukhari. He came into the dream of Hazrat Ibn Abbas and he told him about his state. He says, I'm in a very, very bad way. Very bad way. And Ibn Abbas was talking to him and inquiring. But he says, every Monday I suck on this finger and I receive relief from the pain of hell. And Ibn Abbas asks, in confusion, why? How is it that you, in the way that you died, how could you possibly get relief from Jahannam? And he said, on the day that the Prophet ﷺ was born, I was given the news, and out of happiness, I freed my slave, Thuwayba, with my finger. I freed her. And that finger which I used to free her in happiness and in thankfulness, I now suck on that finger and receive relief from Jahannam. So what does this demonstrate? You have to ask the question, if a certified kafir receives this benefit in the akhirah, what then of a Muslim who year in, year out celebrates the Milad in the love and reverence of Rasulullah? Is that not what we're doing here today? You could even say that kuffar who celebrate the birthday of Rasulullah may receive something in the akhirah based upon this hadith. If you could say that for a kafir, why can we not say that for Muslims? You see, it's about how you look at the evidences to make them irrefutable. It's not just about citing them. But now I want to give you a knockout evidence. You know, they say you save the best to last. You know, when you get takeaway, you don't eat the pizza straight away. You get the chips first. You prepare yourself for the pizza. When you get the langar, you leave the bit of lamb in there. You see, and the same with this right now. The Mustadrak of Imam Hakim narrates this hadith. Imam al-Suyuti brings this hadith also in Al-Hawil al-Fatawi, his book of Fatawa. when he writes an article on the Milad. The question is, did the Prophet ﷺ ever celebrate his birthday? As in, actually remembered and celebrated his birthday? Yes. Yes. You see, when a child is born, what do we do? As the sunnah, you perform an? Come on, someone old school must know the answer. You perform an akikah, isn't it? You sacrifice an animal. Yeah? You're following? This is how you remember and celebrate the birth of a newborn child. You do it when they've been born, isn't it? Now, the Prophet ﷺ, according to this hadith, he gathered the ashab. He got a majlis of the ashab. He gathered the ashab. And he brought forward some animals. And after announcing Nabuwat, after announcing his Risala, because the Prophet was a prophet, he knew he was a prophet before announcing it, but after announcing his Risala, after announcing his Nabuwat, he performed a second akikah. Now why do you perform an akikah? To celebrate your birthday. And then he distributed the meat to the ashab. So this is evidence that Rasulullah himself ﷺ celebrated his birthday, gave elevation and status to his birthday beyond fasting, because even that hadith from Sahih Muslim should be enough. So I think it's safe to say we've covered the Quran, because there's many dalail in the Quran, but there's a saying, just give the knockout punches, you don't need to play with your food. So dalail from the Quran, we've got dalail from the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. Are we all satisfied with that? Now, to wrap up, there are many ways the Ashab celebrated the birth and the presence of Rasulullah. And one of those ways was Naat. What was one of those ways? Naat. What was one of those ways? Naat. Now, in this day and age where people say Naat is bid'ah, I tell you that Naat is a species of the Quran. Naat is a species of the Quran. Allah educates us. وَرَفَعْنَا لَكَ ذِكْرَكَ. Forget your Imam Sahib. Forget Mujaddid Deen Imam Ahmad Rida Khan Barelvi rahmatullahi alayhi. Forget Pir Meher Ali Shah. Forget all of these great awliya who have written poetry in praise of Rasulullah. Forget everybody in this ummah. Allah Almighty has exalted and elevated the praise. Now, this is from the Quran. But how is it the Ashab remembered the Naat of Rasulullah? There's a certain piece of poetry that I really love, and I will read to you today. One of the very first Naat Khwan of Al-Islam was Hazrati Hassan bin Thabit. What was his name? Hazrati Hassan. And there was a majlis of the Prophet ﷺ. And he instructed Hazrati Hassan, oh, Hazrati Hassan, I hear that you read my praise. I hear you make my praise. I want to hear you make my praise. So Hazrati Hassan took to the mimbar of Rasulullah. You know, this wasn't just an ordinary gathering. In front of that individual whom you merely have to look at with your eye and you will be free from Jahannam, was present in his gathering. That individual who the entire alameen was created for was in that gathering. And that individual said, I want to hear what you read about me. So Hazrat Hassan took the mimbar and he read some very beautiful words. Would you like to hear these words?
Yes.
Okay, I won't tell you that. Would you like to hear these words?
Yes.
Hazrat Hassan read some kalam, which is not the species of the aql. It is the species of muhabba. It is the species of ishq. And there's a saying that if ever you wish to know where the haqq is, all you have to do is look to where the love is. Wherever love exists, haqq exists. And I don't mean this love where people say, oh, I love the Prophet, and then use the Quran and Sunnah to remove his status. I mean this love where those people, their hearts beat to the name of Rasulullah. This is the love I'm talking about. And this love was so great that even Ashraf Ali Thanvi had to acknowledge that love in Ala Hazrat rahimahumullah, and he acknowledged that love in him and praised that love within him. That is how great this love is. And this Naat of Hazrat Hassan was a species of that love, that ocean of love. And he read some beautiful words. He read, وَأَحْسَنُ مِنْكَ لَمْ تَرَكَتْ عَيْنِي وَأَجْمَلُ مِنْكَ لَمْ تَلِدِ النِّسَاءُ خُلِقْتَ مُبَرَّأً مِنْ كُلِّ عَيْبٍ كَأَنَّكَ قَدْ خُلِقْتَ كَمَا تَشَاءُ. What does he say? Listen carefully. وَأَحْسَنُ مِنْكَ لَمْ تَرَكَتْ عَيْنِي. Oh my beloved, my eyes have never seen anything as beautiful as you. وَأَجْمَلُ مِنْكَ لَمْ تَلِدِ النِّسَاءُ. Oh my beloved, no mother has ever given birth to a son like you. خُلِقْتَ مُبَرَّأً مِنْ كُلِّ عَيْبٍ. Oh my beloved, it seems as if you have been created without any faults. كَأَنَّكَ قَدْ خُلِقْتَ كَمَا تَشَاءُ. Oh my beloved, when Allah created us, He created us in the way that He wanted to create us. But in your case, Ya Rasulullah, in your case, Ya Nabi Allah, in your case, Ya Rahmatan lil Alameen, Allah created you the way you wanted to be created. Look at this great love. Look at this insight of Hazrat Hassan radiallahu anhu.
Subhanallah, mashallah.
So fear not, O Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah. There is not a single practice you do except that we first find its dalail in the Quran. There is not a single practice that you do except we can find its dalail in the Sunnah of Rasulullah. There is not a practice that you do except that that practice was embraced and embodied by the Ashab. And I leave you with one final message. You have came here today and I pray that I have removed or clarified any doubts and niggles in the minds of our youth. But I want to give you one take-home message in these final concluding minutes. We live, because you see, it's all good and well coming along and saying, MashaAllah, Subhanallah. But you have to take away something from these gatherings which you can implement. TK, you understand?
Yes.
It's all good and well coming and saying Subhanallah and eating the langar. But you have to take something away that's more than the halwa sharif at the end. Okay? So, there's a verse of the Quran, very oft recited. You will all hear this very often. Allah Almighty, He talks about a certain attribute of the Prophet ﷺ. And this attribute is so great. You have what we call sift, yani sifat, attributes, and then you have dhat, essence. You're following? Sift and dhat. What is greater, the attribute or the essence? The essence, isn't it? For example, my white skin is my attribute. Or I'd say olive today. But my skin is my attribute. But my entire being is my dhat. You understand? Allah talks about one attribute of the Prophet ﷺ, and He talks about how that single attribute alone dominates the entire universe. Yeah? And Allah educates us. وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. That He is a mercy to the entire alameen. There is not a single atom of this alameen that is not encompassed in the mercy of Rasulullah. His single sift encompasses the entire universe. Why am I telling you this? Because in our community there is an absence of mercy. Mercy. Allah praises the khuluq of the Prophet ﷺ entirely. إِنَّكَ لَعَلَىٰ خُلُوقٍ عَظِيمٍ. That his character is sublime. The entire character of Rasulullah is praised and elevated by Allah Almighty. But Allah specifies this attribute. And this isn't the only time the mercy of Rasulullah is specified. Okay? But you have to appreciate that that one specified attribute we do not have anymore. How can you expect Rabbul Alameen to forgive you on Yawm al-Qiyamah if you cannot forgive one another in this dunya? Put your hand up if you have angered somebody in your life. Put your hand up honestly if you have upset someone or angered someone in your life. Yes? Put your hand up if someone has upset and angered you in your life. I want you all, even if they don't know about it, I want you all to forgive everyone who has ever upset and hurt you. Because life is too short. You will one day be in your graves. Okay? What will your anger and what will your hatred and what will your enmity do for you then? It will work against you. It won't work for you, it will work against you. So please, all of you, take away this one teaching today. Have mercy amongst each other. Have love and muhabba amongst each other. And don't just restrict that mercy to your brotherly or to your group. Expand that mercy so that everyone is encompassed by it. Start smiling at people, start interacting with people, and demonstrate a fragment of the mercy of Rahmatul lil Alameen in your own day-to-day interaction. May Allah forgive any mistakes I have made. Thank you for hosting me and thank you for having me. I'm actually a nobody. I'm a very poor example of a student. But I'm very honoured to be stood here before you. May Allah make this a means of shifa and maghfirah for us all. Wa jazakallahu khairan. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen.